The 7th running of the Billabong Pro. In 1988, the Billabong Pro became the world's richest surfing tournament with a $100,000 payout. Today, the world's best surfers are competing for $200,000. And still leading the world title chase is Tom Curran. That championship will be decided here at the Billabong Pro. It's time for the 21st and final event on the ASP World Tour. For the next hour, you'll see the Billabong Pro here on ESPN. Aloha and welcome to ESPN's exclusive coverage of the Association of Surfing Professionals multi-million-dollar World Tour. Today we are in Hawaii for the 3rd and final event of Hawaii's Triple Crown, and today's event is the 21st and final event on the ASP World Tour for the men. It is the 7th running of the $200,000 Billabong Pro here at Sunset Beach. I'm David Stanfield. Joining me on today's telecast, former world champion of 1978, Wayne Rabbit Bartholomew. And Wayne, let's talk about the great surf we have here at Sunset.
Well, it really, truly is great, Joe. We have an 8 to 10 foot northwest swell, which is excellent for Sunset Beach. We have very favourable winds, and the swell is supposed to increase as the day goes on. So by final time, it's going to be very exciting.
Big money and big points on the line for this event. How are the surfers going to score points in this surf?
Well, in Hawaii, the emphasis, of course, is on size. The size of the wave. If they get the biggest wave of the set, take the latest drop in the most critical part of the wave, and do the biggest manoeuvres, they will get the maximum points. And let me emphasise the manoeuvres. Sure, you can get the long rides, the distance, but if you don't do the major manoeuvres, you will not score the big points.
Now, the dramatics, they happened early on. We still have dramatics going into the main event, but early rounds, we saw a new world champion crowned.
Well, precisely round 3 of the trials, Tom Curran of the United States clinched his 3rd world title, David, and it was in dramatic circumstances, really. He could have won the world title in the World Cup 2 events ago, then the Pipeline Masters, but he saved the dramatics for the last event of the tour, the Billabong Pro.
And Tom Curran, a former world champion, now the current world champion, along with several other world champions, had their difficulties in the quarterfinals.
Well, that's true as well, David. We saw the reigning world champion Martin Potter go out the door first. He was eliminated in quarter number 1, followed by the new world champion Tom Curran, and then 2 Aussie world champions Barton Lynch and Damien Hardiman were soon to follow for an early shower.
Let's take a look at wild highlights of the quarterfinals here at Billabong Pro. Quarterfinal heat number 1, Tony Ray, Derek Ho, Martin Potter, and Mike Parsons. Conditions were fantastic for the quarterfinals. Offshore winds created long, hollow sections for 2 brides, and 3-time Triple Crown winner Derek Ho was first to capitalize, take advantage of the optimum conditions.
Derek Ho, with his distinctive Hawaiian style, grabs a rail on his backhand and pulls into a fabulous tube ride. Coming back around with a nice cutback, Ho with a 22.8 for his opening ride.
Martin Potter scored some big points as well, connecting several powerful cutbacks under the lip. The 1989 world champion was hoping to better his Billabong performance from last year, resulting in an equal 9th.
And Martin Potter, the Billabong Pro of 1990, being his last one as world champion.
Big wave rider Mike Parsons had trouble in this heat, though.
Mike Parsons came to Hawaii with a BHP victory under his belt in Australia and struggled badly.
But looking good was Tony Ray of Torquay, Australia.
And the young Australian pulled into this fabulous barrel to advance through to the semi-finals. Later, we talked to Tony about the heat.
Well, I thought it was a closeout because I could see it like coming left at me from down in the bowl, and just a little window opened up in the side and let me pop out. It was big and awesome, you know, just got such a rush out of it. After that, I just had so much energy.
Martin Potter tried to better Tony Ray's tube ride, but there was no escape.
He saw the daylight but couldn't make it.
Winning quarterfinal heat number 1, Triple Crown contender Derek Ho. His 3 scoring waves were 22 points or higher.
You know, I'm stoked. I'm up the number 1 contender right now for the Triple Crown, and you know, I really don't like to think about it too much. I want to concentrate on getting through heats. I want to get to the finals and, you know, put in a good performance. If that comes along with it, I'll be stoked.
So advancing Derek Ho and Tony Ray. In quarterfinal heat number 2, we saw Tom Curran, Richie Collins, Vatia David, and Nicky Wood. Batia David, the only Tahitian on the ASP World Tour, surfed well in this quarterfinal heat number 2.
This wave was Batia's highest scoring ride with a 26 out of 30, and it helped him earn a spot in the Billabong semis.
Batia David, Papeete Tahiti, a former world junior amateur champion. And Billabong team rider, talented surfer shaper from Newport Beach, California, Richie Collins was hoping to better his 1989 ASP rating of 8th by doing well in this event.
Richie surfed well, but under his best, and would have been disappointed not to advance past the quarters.
Former two-time world champion Tom Curran did not advance as well, but he won a 3rd world championship by qualifying in this heat. He did what no other surfer had done before, regain the world title.
After surfing only selected events on the tour, winning 7 of those he entered, Tom Curran became the oldest surfer to win a men's world title.
Tom Curran wins the world championship, but winning quarterfinal number 2 is Nicky Wood of Newcastle, Australia. His 3 scoring rides averaged 21 points or better. Currently rated 17th on the ASP World Tour, a semifinal berth meant more than a shot at the final.
Yeah, the pressure's a fair bit because I was going to lose my sponsor if I dropped out of the 16, so it was worth a lot of money to me, and it's my career, so I had to make the best of it. But I tried not to be nervous and try and get off to a good start, and that's what happened, so I went on with it.
A fantastic heat win for 20-year-old Nicky Wood out of Newcastle, Australia. Advancing to semifinal number 1, Derry Coe, Tony Ray, Nicky Wood, and Batia David. And in quarterfinal heat number 3, 2 Australians and 2 Hawaiians. Barton Lynch, Mitch Thorson, Marty Thomas, and Mike Latronic. And Mitch Thorson, the 25-year-old from Margaret River, Western Australia, finished 4th in this quarterfinal heat number 3.
Riding a 5-pin bonds aboard, Mitch surfed well, but suffered in wave selection. Because his waves were pretty small, he only averaged a 13.
Barton Lynch, the 1988 world champion, caught only 3 waves in this heat.
His best wave and the highest score of the heat, a 26, was added to a 14.5 and an 18.5. It wasn't enough to advance.
The win in quarterfinal heat number 3 was a battle between the 2 local Hawaiians, Mike Latronic and Marty Thomas.
Latronic, who put on a spectacular show to finish 3rd in last year's Billabong, badly wanted to win in front of his home crowd.
And with fans on the beach was Marty Thomas, another Sunset local, surfing strong. But despite losing his board at the beginning of the heat, he was able to catch 4 waves.
But Latronic, a Billabong-sponsored rider, scored highly with powerful calves out of the top.
In the end, however, it was Marty Thomas who won the heat, beating Mike Latronic by 0.1. He talked about that win.
First set, I got on the head and I broke my leash, and I got, about 4 waves, on top of me, and it was a bit tough. Took a lot of energy. Fortunately, I just came back and picked up a couple good waves. I didn't think I had much of a chance in that heat because of the beginning, but fortunately enough, I got a couple ones that lined up to the inside, and here I go into the semis, and I'm really happy. I'm just trying to do the best I can in this contest. It's the last one of the year. Hopefully, I can, get myself in the top 10 and look forward to next year.
Semifinal number 2, Marty Thomas and Mike Latronic advanced. Quarterfinal heat number 4, we saw Gary Elkerton, Michael Romelsi, Hans Wiedemann, and Damian Hardman. And high winds and showers made conditions more difficult in this quarterfinal heat number 4. Damian Hardman, the 1987 world champion from Narrabeen, Australia.
Damian surfed with an injury, a torn hamstring muscle sustained while competing during the 2nd Australian leg of the tour. Despite a good performance, he could only manage a 4th.
Michael Romelsi, a 23-year-old from Sydney, Australia, surfed powerfully, trying to better his last 2 Billabong Pro performances of equal 9th place finishes. Meanwhile, Hans Wiedemann, Hawaiian surfer from Kailua, was eager to have another shot at the Billabong Pro title, having won the inaugural event back in 1984.
Always a threat in Sunset's big waves, Hans advanced.
Winning quarterfinal heat number 4 was Australian Gary Elkerton, the 2-time Triple Crown champion and winner of the Billabong Pro in 1987, sustained an injury at the Pipeline Masters.
Surfing with 27 stitches in his arm, Gary surfed with his usual powerful style. Though the title chase was over, Gary still had a chance to win the Billabong in 1990.
Semi-final number 2, meeting Marty Thomas and Mike Latronic, Gary Elkerton and Hans Wiedemann. The 7th annual Billabong Pro, $200,000 in prize money here at Sunset Beach, Oahu, Hawaii, continues right after this. Islands for the $200,000 Billabong Pro, the 21st and final stop on the ASP World Tour. Semi-final number 1, we saw Nikki Wood, Vitia David, Tony Ray, and Derry Coe. Tony Ray, 22 years old, Torquay, Victoria, Australia, a beautiful area of southeastern Australia with big waves, and he's good in big waves.
That's right, David. Tony cut his teeth on that wild Victorian coast, but when he brought his act to Hawaii, he really found his niche. Tony here scoring a 17-0 on his second wave in the semi-final.
Also in semi-final number 1, Nikki Wood, the 20-year-old, fourth-year pro on the ASP World Tour, who won the Bells Beach Classic at the age of 16.
By advancing to the semi-finals of the Billabong Pro, Nikki Wood had clinched his top 16 berth. The pressure was off and Nikki was able to cut loose. The big slam out of the top on his first wave scored him a 20.0.
Nikki Wood, a good confidence builder on his first wave. Also in this heat was Derry Coe, the 26-year-old from Sunset Beach, Hawaii. The 7th-year pro came into this event ranked 10th, and what he was hoping for was another Triple Crown.
Having just won the Hard Rock World Cup, Derry Coe was leading the Triple Crown ratings and needed to get through this heat to clinch the title.
And on this wave, Derry Coe scored 17.5 points. And the 4th person in this heat, Vitia David, they call him Poto, 22 years old, Papeete Tahiti, the 4th-year pro, was a former Hawaiian Triple Crown Rookie of the Year champion.
Vitia David has been surfing the North Shore with gusto. Last year he charged Pipeline, this year he's in the Billabong semis.
Missed a little waves and got caught by a really big set, and I was mostly on the whitewater swimming.
But in sync with the ocean was Nikki Wood. Here is second wave scoring 18.5 points out of a possible 30.
Already a household name in Australia, Nikki Wood now trying to make the big time on the international circuit in Hawaii.
And the wave of semi-final number 1 was this one, Tony Ray, 23.5 points.
Well, Tony Ray had been looking for the tube all day, and that was the one that got him through to the final.
Positioning in the lineup and wave selection here at Sunset are the keys, and Tony Ray had found the right track.
I think mainly I've got this really nice little lineup spot, these things I line up with, and if I sit there, I just seem to be in the right spot for the best waves every time, and that seems to be it, you know. I just being patient and waiting for the good ones.
This was only a 13.5 point wave for Derry Coe, but his consolation was he won the 1990 Triple Crown title.
And true to his word, Tony Ray was picking off the big waves all day long. This wave, he came around the bottom, cut back in the pocket, pulled tightly into the tube, and came out clean as a whistle.
Nikki Wood's 5th wave, worth 17 points, and we asked him how high a win could take him in the ASP rankings.
I can only really go as high as 15 or, but I'm just stoked to make the final in the Billabong because it's the biggest event of the year, and I'm stoked. I'm really happy.
And in the closing moments of this heat, Derry Coe on his 5th wave didn't score enough points.
Well, Derry Coe needed a 25.5 to slip past Nikki Wood into 2nd place. He surfed well, but came up a little short.
And with a sigh of relief, Tony Ray wins the heat. And coming in 2nd, Nikki Wood. Tony Ray, his first final ever. Nikki Wood moves into the top 16. Derry Coe, his consolation, his 4th Triple Crown. And Vitia David, well, he was caught inside swimming. So into the finals, Tony Ray and Nikki Wood.
With half the final berth locked in place, all eyes are upon semi number 2 between Marty Thomas, Hans Hiedemann, Mike Latronic, and Gary Elkerton.
Running a surf contest requires all the elements, tide, swell, wind direction, and weather can affect a surf contest for better or worse. The decision was made to start the quarterfinals at 8 a.m. and the world's richest surfing event was underway. The Billabong Pro continues. Up next, semifinal number 2. Highlights number 2. And in that heat, we saw 4 outstanding surfers, Marty Thomas, Hans Hiedemann, Mike Latronic, and Gary Elkerton. All big wave specialists here on the North Shore. And first up, Mike Latronic, third place last year in the Billabong Pro and looking to make it into the finals this year. As four surfers tried for every wave out there, and it was Mike Latronic obviously in the right position at the right time.
Well, Mike Latronic did get the third last year, but that was in man-on-man surfing. This year, he wants to go one place further through the semis into the final.
And we saw trouble here as Gary Elkerton, unaware of Mike Latronic picking up the wave a little bit further to the outside, incurred a wave interference.
Now, this is a crucial moment in this semi-final. Elkerton was not aware of Latronic's presence on the wave. Latronic, with the ASP rules on his side, gets the interference call against Gary Elkerton.
Elkerton, 26 years old, living in Lacanau, France, originally from Australia. Somewhat of a tough year. 3 runner-up finishes, mostly to Tom Curran, a second place overall in the standings, and a big interference.
Well, a big interference, and most people had penciled Gary Elkerton in, you know, the master of Sunset, for the final, so this was a tragic mistake for Elkerton.
And with that interference, Elkerton was scored on only 2 of his waves. The other competitors scored on 3. And at this point in the heat, Gary Elkerton, very frustrated with little hope of winning the Billabong Pro. Hans Hedemann, 31 years old, Kailua, Oahu, the 13-year pro, a former champion of the Billabong Pro, knows Sunset very well.
Hans has been surfing on the North Shore all his life. He comes from Hawaii, so he should know the place. He's won at Sunset Beach, and he's a consummate professional. He knew Gary Elkerton had shot himself in the foot, and he lifted his performance.
Hans Hedemann, 4 ASP career victories, 1 being the Billabong Pro back in '84. And the veteran here looking very strong, and I think on a very low-scoring wave, 17 points, and this one took him all the way to the inside.
Basically, Hans Hedemann knew that he had Gary Elkerton pretty well covered. He only had to beat Mike Latronic or Marty Thomas to reach the final.
And here's Mike Latronic, his third scoring wave, 22.5 points.
Latronic actually hustled Marty Thomas out of that wave, so Latronic was in great form in that semi-final, building and building his performance.
And coming into this Billabong Pro, currently he wasn't ranked in the top 100 of the ASP. Not a touring pro, he's a specialist on the North Shore. And take a look at this wave, 23 points.
Well, by virtue of his third-place performance in last year's Billabong Pro, Mike Latronic received a wildcard entry and vindicated that wildcard by getting this far in the tournament.
Mike Latronic with no problems advancing. Gary Elkerton, his fourth wave, 13 points.
Well, Elkerton knows the battle's lost. He's not going to make this year's final, and that's that.
Only counting his 2 highest scoring waves. And then there's Hans Hedemann, his fourth wave, scoring a 19.5. It was good enough for a 54.5 total.
By this stage of the semi-final, Hans Hedemann was waging a battle royale with Marty Thomas for the final berth.
Marty Thomas, 23 years old, Sunset Beach, Hawaii, ASP ranking 12th last year, and currently coming into the Billabong Pro 11th. His best result was a second at the OP Pro. Marty Thomas scores 50.5 points, good enough for a third-place finish. Very disappointing. But Mark Fu asked our winner, Mike Latronic, about his strategy for the final.
I'm going to go off. I'm going to try to win it.
What do you do with the money to win?
Take care of my family, get some things for the house, you know. I don't know. There's a lot I can do with it.
You going to pay me back?
You owe me. What are you talking about?
Hey, great job. Good luck. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Rabbit, here are the final results. Gary Elkerton, a fourth-place finish, only scored on 2 waves. Marty Thomas in third, and advancing Mike Latronic and Hans Hedemann.
So after 6 days of torrid surfing, we're down to 4 men. And with 2 Australians and 2 Hawaiians, we're looking at a truly international final.
We are set for the finals of the $200,000 Billabong Pro and Rabbit this year. $40,000 for first, $15,000 for second. Believe me, these 4 finalists are going after that first place prize. Let's talk about them. We've got a couple of Australians at the top. We have Tony Ray from Torquay, Australia.
Well, Tony Ray, David, he's never made an ASP final. This is by far his best finish. But the way he breezed through his semi-final, he won his semi, and he's really looking like the man to beat.
And then there is Nicky Wood, the Phantom.
Well, Nicky Wood is the youngest ever winner of an ASP Pro event. He won the Bells Beach Pro at the tender age of 16 years of age. And Nicky, too, is making his first final outside Australia.
Well, right next to the youngest on stage we just saw minutes ago is the oldest competitor, Hans Hedemann.
Well, that's right. Hans Hedemann notched his name in the record books when he won the World Cup several years ago. I think he was at the age of 29, and Hans, now he's 31, is nowhere near being over the hill. He could go all the way.
And Hedemann won the very first Billabong Pro in Australia back in 1984. Now that leads us to the local favorites. Got to be Mike Latronic, last year a third-place finish here.
Well, that's right. 2 years in a row he's made the semi-finals. Last year he placed third. This year he's gone one step further. He's really confident, and he could go all the way as well. This is going to be a great final.
Our competitors are in the lineup right now. Let's turn our attention to the finals of the $200,000 Billabong Pro.
And local boy Mike Latronic draws first blood in this Billabong Pro final. A big meaty wedge at Sunset, draws off the bottom, snaps off the top. It's a good-looking wave, David.
Mike Latronic, Billabong team rider since 1983, and this is his local spot.
He's been surfing here all his life. This is where he cut his teeth out in these waves. Last year, placed third. This year, he'd like to go all the way, and a good opening ride.
Very good opening ride for Mike Latronic. 5 waves are going to be counted. A total of 15 waves can be caught, 0 to 10 points. The judges are scoring. They throw out the high and low, so a good wave is 30 points. A perfect wave is 30 points, 22 points. Good one.
Well, that's a great score to start this final with, and his opponents really know they're up against some stiff opposition.
Here's Nicky Wood now from Australia, his first wave.
And not only is it his first wave, it's his first wave in a final outside Australia, and he started with a fantastic big snap in the bowl at Sunset Beach. The wave kind of dies out. He has to keep cutting back into the white water. And, well, this wave is going to be a long ride, but whether he gets the big points tonight is going to be up to the judges, really, because he didn't get more than that big first major maneuver in.
And the judges definitely, they are judging the most radical control maneuvers in the critical section of the wave, and this wave pretty small on the inside.
Well, part of the criteria is length of ride, and Nick Wood has definitely fulfilled that part of the criteria. Well, let's look at that wave again in slow motion, David.
And again, keeping in mind, a perfect score is 30 points, and he receives 14 points.
And a big snap in slow motion under the lip. You can see the degree of difficulty there. Nick Wood has to recover on his board and get his balance. And that score was only good for 14 points, but it's a start.
Nicky Wood paddles back out. Thousands of people on the beach, anticipating more waves and more great surfing as the Billabong Pro continues. On the North Shore of Oahu, the final event on the ASP World Tour. Mark Fu, Wayne Rabbit Bartholomew, and David Stanfield. We are into the finals right now, and out in the lineup we have Tony Ray. He is in position.
Well, Tony Ray has been building momentum all the way from the quarterfinals through the semi-finals. And on this wave, his opening wave, he gets bounced, attempting a big cutback.
Tony Ray, the fifth-year pro, currently ranked 38th in the world, trying to move up. Now he's going to have to take a deep dive and try to get under that wave, get back out into the lineup.
Well, Tony Ray only got a 4.5 for that wave. That won't augur well for his total score, and in fact, I'd say that one will be a throwaway.
And Hans Hedemann now, his first wave, the local surfer, actually from Kailua, the other side of the island, a wave with some good shape.
Well, Hans Hedemann's a real danger man in a final situation. He's been here before. He's got a pretty fluffy sort of wave on his hands here, and it's a difficult wave to have to negotiate, and he pulls through that wave.
Hans Hedemann, 4 career victories, looking for another one here. Now it's Mike Latronic, his second wave. Boy, it's fast.
Yes, well, Mike Latronic took a bit of a dive there. That's his second wave, and he won't get many points for that, but it's interesting to see that these guys can take the dive and take some bad spills and then recover to get some excellent rides.
And here's the oldest competitor, Hans Hedemann, 31 years old. You say you can't count him out. Let's look at his wave one more time. A 16.5 on this wave. What a beautiful shaping wave at the beginning.
Well, it really started well, Dave, and it spat out, and you could see that that was a very difficult maneuver for Hans. And now, when he got past that point, the wave just blew out.
Mike Latronic, his second wave, just 12 points. That'll probably be a throwaway. And now here's Nicky Wood, his second wave.
Well, it's a much better wave for Nick Wood. He comes off the bottom, a nice clean cutback, bounces off the whitewater, drops to the bottom again, looks for another snap, sends the spray flying, and Nick Wood getting some nice maneuvers on his second wave. He's going to ride this wave all the way through and gets a final little bounce as the wave drops off in size. He flicks off in the channel.
Nicky Wood, 20 years old, out of Newcastle, just north of Sydney in Australia. Perfect conditions here, air 80 degrees, water temperature 74. We've got an 8 to 10 foot swell, and Nicky Wood garners 18.5 points on that wave.
Well, in slow motion, you can see the fluid motion of this guy surfing. Nicky Wood slams it off the top here, really sends a good rooster tail, back on his inside rail again, and carries on, and he got that 18.5, and that one, that'll sit pretty well in his score.
And out the back, we've got a fellow Australian, Tony Ray, who's had a great contest thus far, non-seeded trialist into the finals.
Well, Tony Ray picked a medium-sized wave, but this wave looks to have a very good inside section. He comes around the bottom, nice cutback by Ray, drops back down to the bottom again, a solid bottom turn, and a big roundhouse cutback, a very committed move, and he's linking up some major manoeuvres, a small snap off the top there, but goes for the big floater and pulls it off. A beautiful recovery there by the young Australian. And let's check out that major manoeuvre while Tony's paddling back out. We see how he sets it up beautifully, really lays the board over, sticks it up in the lip and gets some air. Mark Fu talked to Tony just before the final.
Tony Ray, how's it feel to make your first Hawaiian final after all these years?
Oh, I'm just so happy. It's the first final I've ever been in full stop in an ASP event, and it's just blown my mind, especially in Hawaii. It's always been my dream to make it over here, because I've always thought that I was good enough, but I've just never put it all together, you know, a whole bunch of heats in a row like that.
Tony Ray guaranteed no worse than a 4th place finish here at the Billabong Pro. His best result this year has been an equal 5th at the Gunston 500. He paddles back out, and here is Hans Hedemann, his second scoring wave.
Well, Hans Hedemann on his first wave scoring a 16.5. He's hoping to build on that performance, and the Hawaiian getting a big solid cutback in, bounces off the whitewater, brings it on the inside section, weaving back and forward, sending a lot of spray flying as the wave dies in size. He's going to ride this through to the death.
And here comes Hans Hedemann to the inside. Currently ranked number 34 on the ASP World Tour, picks up 17 points.
A second mid-range score for Hans Hedemann, that'll help out.
For the spectators on the beach, they need binoculars to see that this is Mike Latronic, his 3rd wave.
And for his 3rd wave, he's chosen a medium-sized wave, cutting back, setting this inside section up. He's looking for a bit of speed now, and he goes up and over this wave, a big radical re-entry, and he keeps going on the wave, and he gets bounced off by that whitewater, but a fair ride.
And judges' scores coming in right now. Perfect score is 30 points, and Mike Latronic 17 points. Earlier, our Mark Fu asked him about how he prepared for this event.
Well, I took the same approach as last year. I trained with you, as a matter of fact, and got in pretty good physical condition. And, you know, basically, I think my wave knowledge out there helps me out a lot. And, you know, if I'm beating these guys surfing, then I'm beating them, you know.
Mike Latronic strokes back into the lineup. Total score to date for Mike, 51 points. We'll continue with this exciting 4-man main event final as the Billabong Pro continues. Why in the Billabong Pro? We are well underway into our main event, 4-man final. Hans Hedemann, 31 years old. Nicky Wood, 20 years old. One of the oldest and the youngest, along with Tony Ray and Mike Latronic, and out the back. From our helicopter view, 2 surfers and one closest to the peak. Looks like it's Nicky Wood.
Nick Wood from Australia taking off, coming off the bottom of a big fluffy whitewater wave and pulls into a big barrel. So Nicky Wood coming out and surviving that section. A great ride for Nick Wood, and we'll have to see what the scores are. He keeps going on to the inside section, and on the outside, Mike Latronic on the wave behind it. So a great set of waves and a great exchange between the Australian and the Hawaiian. And Latronic prones out, up again on his feet, out onto the shoulder, cuts back into the whitewater, setting up the inside. Another big, beautiful cutback, and he's going for another cutback. So Mike Latronic, multiple manoeuvres on the face, and a great exchange.
As Mike Latronic paddles back out, we'll take a look at that wave one more time. He takes off actually not on the peak, and the wave's already broken.
That's right, David. The peak is already broken, so taking off on the soft shoulder, it wasn't really a great ride, but he made the most of the inside section, and he scored a few points.
And Nicky Wood, his score is coming up a total of 58 points right now. Again, 5 scoring waves will count, and this was a good one, 25.5 points.
Well, in the Olympic Games, they talk about the degree of difficulty of a maneuver, and in surfing, I'd say that was a degree of difficulty somewhere around a 9.5 perhaps.
Earlier, Mark Fu spoke with Nicky Wood about how he's surfing these waves here at Sunset.
it's a kind of size out there where it's kind of rippable as well. It's not like, you know, you can really hit the lip as well. So it's in between size, so it makes it easier. Like when it's 15 feet, you can't really do that. But when it's around 8 feet, well, then it makes it easier.
Nicky Wood, his third wave, 25.5 points out of a total of 30. Boy, that's a big scoring wave. Now here's Tony Ray.
Tony Ray on his third wave. He's been building in his performance in this final, zigging and zagging back. Note how he stands well to the back of his board, and he's got a big chunky section of a wave to deal with. Bounces around that whitewater, and he's back on the open face again now. Tony Ray dropping to the bottom, snapping off the top, getting some speed, back off the bottom again, and going for a big manoeuvre at massive re-entry, getting air and flicking out. And that was a pretty good ride for Tony Ray.
Tony Ray, a trialist, surfing the entire contest here, still keeping the energy. Take a look.
Look at the big manoeuvre. He really put it up there. Committed manoeuvre, vertical, and then getting air on the wave down. And the crowd applauded. They liked that one, David.
His first ASP final, and he is going for broke. Here's Hans Hedemann, the veteran.
Well, Hans Hedemann, he fades back into the corner of the wave, and from the air we see the big face in front of him, getting speed off the bottom. He's got a big section to get around, snaps it off the top, a beautiful cutback, and a second one, sending the spray flying. He's in the whitewater now, but he gets a third cutback in, not a major manoeuvre, and he flicks out. So Hans Hedemann putting himself back into contention, scurrying back into the lineup.
And here's Hans Hedemann on that wave one more time. 17 points, a total of 50.5 points. And earlier, Mark Fu spoke with him about his strategy going into the final.
I get a lot of energy out in the final, and I just really try really hard, and I just try and build my momentum from the start. I think this last semifinal heat I had a slow start and I had to build my momentum. So I'm going to try and have my momentum from the beginning and concentrate on the bigger and better waves and bigger and better maneuvers.
As Hans and the other competitors make their way back into the lineup, let's take a moment to pay tribute to this year's best of the best, the new 1990 world champion, Tom Curran.
After a year's semi-retirement to become a family man, beginning the 1990 season ranked 55th in the world, surfing through the trials in 10 events, winning 3 of them, and ultimately finishing the year with 7 victories, Tom Curran captured his 3rd ASP World Championship. Only Australian legend Mark Richards has won 1 more. After an incredible year of phenomenal surfing, the winningest professional surfer of all time, the all-time leading money winner, the soft-spoken California native can once again survey the surfing world from the top of the mountain. Tom Curran began the year ranked 55th and finished the year ranked number 1. He describes his feelings at the time he clinched the title.
It's so much like a dream, I can't even believe it. I just went out there really nervous, and I was just struggling to get 3 waves that were decent. I think the waves are a bit stormy, so there's a lot of luck involved, and I was really struggling out there, and I can't believe it's happened. I think it was good to have a little bit of a lead coming into Hawaii, just to try to not be quite as nervous, and try to just relax and go out and surf. But it has been pretty tough in that respect. This last month especially has been really nerve-wracking, but now it's over. I can't even believe it.
After grinding his way through so many trials, Tom had this to say about his chances of repeating as world champion next year.
Well, as long as I'm competing, yeah, I'm going to try, try to win it. So that's the goal anyway. So, but it's been a magic year for me. I've been really stoked.
Congratulations to the new 1990 ASP world champion, Tom Curran.
The World Championship has been decided, as well as the Triple Crown champion, Derek Ho. Both Curran and Ho are out of competition, but the Billabong Pro title is up for grabs, and Nicky Wood is charging hard for it.
Wave number 4 for Nick Wood, and after his 25.5 on his last wave, he's looking to consolidate on this wave. Streaking onto the inside section at Sunset, hard off the bottom, slams it off the top, sending the whitewater flying, ducks under a big curtain of whitewater, comes around the section, goes for a vertical re-entry, gets bounced, but not a bad ride, David.
Nicky Wood, who's been surfing since the age of 7 with some top pros. His godfather is 4-time world champion Mark Richards with an 18.5 on his 4th wave.
Well, he got a lot of speed on this wave. He cuts back on this under the section, gets a lot of whitewater on his shoulders, and Sunset Beach, that's a lot of water per volume per square foot. Comes around this section, a nice clean face and an 18.5, a well-deserved score, consolidating, and that would move him into the lead in this final.
Another young Australian, 22-year-old Tony Ray, out the back.
Well, Tony Ray, in the red singlet, he's been on fire all day in his semi-final and now in the final. He's had a couple of good waves, a smaller wave here. He's got a bit of whitewater to deal with. Gets a big manoeuvre in, not quite as big as on his last wave, and that won't score quite as much.
Tony Ray trying to come up with enough points. The judges scoring 0 to 10 now. And the top scorer is 30 points, only 13 points for this wave.
Well, only 13 points, David, but it was a smaller wave. He didn't have a lot to work with. He only got that one major manoeuvre in, and basically he'd like to sort of better that performance on his next one.
Plenty of time left in the Billabong Pro. We will continue with the men's main event, 4-man final, right after this. Lynch, Gary Elkerton, Mark Richards, and Hans Hedemann. Past champions of the Billabong Pro, all are from Australia except Hans Hedemann. And currently Hans is in 4th place. Mike Latronic has 63.5, and he is in the lead. David Stanfield with world champion, 1978 world champion Wayne Rabbit Bartholomew. A great final going on right now.
Well, it really is a great final, David, and I feel that Mike Latronic, who's up and riding on this wave, is in the lead by virtue of the fact that he's had a couple of more rides and he has a few higher scores earlier on in the final. Now, on this wave, wave number 5, he'd be looking to try and further that lead, increase it. A nice cutback there, a pretty poor inside section, but he gets a roundhouse cutback, and that was a pretty neat manoeuvre. Coming around the section again and nothing more to work with. So on that wave, we'll see what he scores.
Mike Latronic, 3rd place, an equal 3rd place last year. Up and riding right now, it looks like Hans Hedemann.
Well, at this stage of the final, Hans Hedemann is a cellar dweller. He'd like to move out of 4th spot and move up the ranking. He would dearly love to win this tournament, and he's surfing with a lot of gusto on this wave. Nice floater re-entry, comes around the inside section, has to straighten out, but he got some decent manoeuvres in.
Hans Hedemann, professional surfer since 1978. That's when he first entered the Duke Kahanamoko Surf Classic right here at Sunset Beach. Let's look back now at Mike Latronic's 5th wave.
Well, Mike Latronic scored a 15.5 on this wave. Now added to his 22.5 on his first wave. Perhaps at this stage of the final, a 15.5 won't really help his cause. He needs to get a bigger score. Now Hans Hedemann on his wave, he scored a 17.0, which is slightly better than Mike Latronic, and that's because he got that big radical floater manoeuvre in. So Hans Hedemann trying to move his way up.
And currently ranked number 38th on the ASP World Tour, and looking to move up on that is Tony Ray from Victoria, Australia.
Well, this is Tony's 5th wave. He has a low point of 4.5 to knock out, so this could do it. Zigging back and forward, rail-to-rail manoeuvres, a big slash there. Very neat manoeuvring by the young Australian surfer. Getting a lot of speed into the inside section, fading back to the bottom of the wave. And now there's not much more to work with, but he got some good manoeuvres in, and that should help him out.
Tony Ray putting in a great performance here at the Billabong Pro and coming up with 16.5 points.
Well, you can see the big solid manoeuvres here. He's boarded fully on rail, every one of these manoeuvres. And he gets the big slash in there, sends the whitewater flying. This is the sort of wave he needs. He's only trailing Mike Latronic by 2.5 points.
Our helicopter Cameraman Wayne Smith getting some beautiful shots. Here's Nicky Wood now. His 5th wave, he needs this. His 5th scoring wave. He's been very selective.
Very selective, David, and the point standings don't really show exactly how he's doing, because overall, with this wave, this could really help him out. He got some big maneuvers in, goes for the tube, he's in there. Oh, he nearly came out. If he'd come out of that one, it could have been a clincher.
And the crowd on the beach, you can see a couple binoculars from the air. You can see he retrieves his board and is going to have to paddle back out. But nonetheless, let's see if he picked up any points on it. Yes, 11.5 points.
Well, 11.5 points for his 5th ride. He gets a good roundhouse cut back in, bounces off the whitewater. Now you can see a bit of urgency in his movements here. He pulls into the barrel. He's in there clean. He's travelling, but not quite coming out. So 11.5, not a bad score. His 5th wave.
He's still feeling comfortable, paddles back out in the lineup, and he looks over his shoulder. He sees Tony Ray now. I believe this is his 6th wave.
Wave number 6 and a clean wave. A big section to get around for Tony Ray. Will he make it? He's hanging on for all his might in that whitewater, and it snuffs him. Oh, what could have been, David?
Tony Ray going for the big points. The wave closes out, and he goes for a bit of a swim. And we're going to check scores on that. We'll see if that helps Tony Ray's efforts. Here's Mike Latronic now in position, a late takeoff.
A late takeoff by the young Hawaiian surfer, and it was a solid vertical wall. Comes around, it's got some whitewater to deal with from the wave in front. It's a very difficult situation, ladies and gentlemen. He makes it around that very difficult section, but not a lot of face to do some major maneuvers in. Got a half a cut back in. And he's zigging and zagging down the face, and let's see what he can do here. Slams a big cut back in, so he got a big move, and now the wave will close out. He'll try and get around it. He's sticking with it, and from the aerial shot you can see there's not a lot of wave left to work with.
But he gets a good hand on the beach. People appreciate the great surfing here at the Billabong Pro. $200,000 in prize money. The winner will take home $40,000. Good incentive. Stay with us. The Billabong Pro. Last year, if you remember, it was a 2-man heat. Shane Horan defeating Ross Clark-Jones. Well, we've got a 4-man heat. 2 Australians and 2 Hawaiians going after the lion's share of the $200,000 in prize money. Mike Latronic paddling back out. And we're going to have to take a look. I believe it was wave number 6, a fantastic wave, 18.3 points.
Well, Mike Latronic, he kind of went to sleep in the middle of this final, David, but he's come alive right at the end, and this is the business end of the deal, and this is when it counts.
And looking out the back, we've got Hans Hedemann now.
Well, Hans, he's been sitting in 4th place. He's taking off on that wave, and it's a solid sunset wave. Just holds on around that whitewater section. A bouncy face to deal with. Comes up and snaps it off the top, brings it around again, looking for the inside section. He'd like to finish this final with a flurry. And there's a nice, another big solid maneuver. And Hans Hedemann finishing off with some great body English in the dying minutes of this final.
Hans Hedemann, wave number 5. As the scores come through right now, let's take a look at Hans' wave. He paddles back out. Not much time left.
Well, we can see on this wave it had a lot of whitewater on the face, but as it moved to the inside section, Hans got a couple of major maneuvers undertaken, and he needed a big score. It's only his 5th wave. He was hurting for some waves, and you saw that body English at the end there. That's the mark of a true professional. And Tony Ray paddling onto the wave in the dying seconds. In fact, there's the horn. The final's over. This wave will count. Unfortunately, he had to fade left. It could have been a great right-handed, but he was caught too far inside. We see Nicky Wood stepping off on the beach. He knows he's had a good final. It's all in the lap of the judges now.
Nicky Wood with 5 waves exactly. Scored on 5 waves. Here comes Mike Latronic, the local favorite, coming in.
Well, Mike doesn't look particularly happy. I don't think he feels like he's won the title. And what about Tony Ray? His last 2 waves not cooperating at all.
Right now, Nicky Wood is on the beach with our Mark Fu. Mark?
Nick, you just surfed your first Hawaiian final. How do you think it went for you?
It went pretty good. There's some good waves out there, and I managed to get a couple, but I think I'll be close. I saw Hans get a good one in the end, but it could go either way.
Okay, now there was one wave in particular. Do you remember that one? It was an outside wedge and kind of a foamy one, probably the highest scoring wave of the final. And you got that barrel, and do you remember that wave very well?
Yeah, that was a nice one. And my last wave, I nearly come out of a barrel, and that probably would have sealed it for me, but I didn't quite make it. But other than that, I had a good surf.
Well, that's the main thing, Nicky, so congratulations once again, and good luck to you with the final results.
Thanks a lot.
And Tony Ray, his maiden ASP final in Hawaiian waters. He's got a few new fans.
A great showing for Tony Ray. And there's Mike Latronic, a little dejected. And right now, Tony Ray is with our Mark Fu. Mark?
In the finals, you got off to a little bit of a slower start, but you came on strong at the end. What was the most memorable moment for you?
I think I did one really big re-entry right in the end bowl. That was probably the best wave I had, as well as the best maneuver I did. All I remember was I was bottom turning and my caddy was just yelling, hit the lip, as he was just screaming. So I just tried to hit the lip and just kind of let go and hung on and got to the bottom and just landed it perfectly. You know, it was just one of those things that just came off.
Congratulations, Tony.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
As the judges conduct their final tabulations, we'll take a quick break and be right back with the results of the Billabong Pro.
Brought to you by Bud Light. Everything else is just a light.
Welcome back to the Billabong Pro. And the applause in the background. That is for Mike Latronic, 4th place finish. Hans Hedemann finishing 3rd. And now to the final announcement for the winner and the runner-up. Tony Ray wearing red and Nicky Wood wearing white.
We'll announce 2nd and 1st. We'll announce 1st. Your 1990 champion receiving $40,000 in cash. Put your hands together for Nicky Wood.
Nicky Wood winning the Billabong Pro, now has climbed from 17th to 12th on the ASP World Tour, winning $40,000 in prize money. And Rabbit, the prize money this year alone with that $40,000 payday is better than he earned his first 4 years as a pro.
That's right, it's phenomenal money for this event, David, and yeah, the surfers deserve it. It's been a hard, long slog on the World Tour this year, and it's just great to have a big bonus at the very end. And what a great pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for Nick Wood.
Nicky Wood with fantastic surfing. In fact, very specialized surfing, only 5 waves, and 5 waves is exactly what they counted to win the title.
And David, that statistic alone says volumes for this guy's ability as a world-class competitor. You know, I can tell you that right now in the Merriweather Hotel back in Newcastle, Australia, they're partying pretty hard. And so they should be, because he's been handsomely rewarded with $40,000 US and the championship of a 5A rated Billabong Pro.
And here was the highest scoring wave of the heat, 25.5 points, a $40,000 wave for Nicky Wood.
Final standings, Viva victory for Nick Wood, Tony Ray 2nd, Hans Hedemann 3rd, and Mike Latronic 4th.
Congratulations going to Nicky Wood out of Newcastle, Australia. A tough start for 1990, those first 6 events, but a great finish here at the Billabong Pro. Your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, you know, I'm stoked to take the money home, and you know, it's pretty tough out there, but we waited around for like 5 days for it to happen, but it was well worth it because it was a nice day, and you know, it ended up unreal.
Definitely in rhythm. You just had sunset all to yourself, it seemed.
Yeah, it's good with 3 other guys out there. Usually there's about 30 guys, but you know, that's the way it is in contests, but you get to choose your waves, so it makes it easier.
Well, congratulations not only to Nicky Wood, but our Triple Crown winner, Derry Coe, and our new world champion, Tom Curran. On behalf of Mark Fu and Rabbit Bartholomew, I'm David Stanfield. So long from the North Shore of Hawaii and the Billabong Pro. Accommodations for the cast and crew provided by Outrigger Hotels Hawaii.